In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at our upcoming pattern where we have the coldest Christmas in potentially 40 plus years. Very, very cold air finally on the way as expected. And also in the upcoming pattern, the potential for what I think could be one of the biggest snowstorms in recent history in the East Coast, really, in the eastern United States. The setup and the ingredients are there for one of the most major snowstorms I've seen personally and tracked personally. So we're going to talk about all of those things within this video. I know that's a lot, but that is really what we're looking at here. And I'm going to dive into all of it a little bit later on for you guys. Now we're taking a look at the current conditions, and really the only thing going on here is this storm system here, which is all kind of intertwined and connected. So we're going to work our way from west to east here. And this is all going to bring a first round of cold air with it, actually, with its cold front. But we could see some snowfall happening here across the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, all the way down through Nebraska and Iowa, and even over into Michigan as well. We could see with these playing moving parts here, we could see that there is a bit of a warm front here. I know it says occluded, but we do see that there is warm air pushing northward at this point. We do see more cold air surging in behind, though. So there's some interesting parts all at play here. And we see the beginning of what is our current major eastern snowstorm that is starting out today, not to be confused with the one that I mentioned earlier on in the video. This is going to be a kind of precursor to that more major system, the system that I personally believe will end up being more major. And by the way, that system that I'm talking about happens to occur around the 23rd and 24th. So not only will that be potentially one of the more major snowstorms we've seen, but also, that will also bring a white Christmas for anybody that does see snow during that snowstorm, because Christmas is only 2 days afterwards. So it is going to be extra impactful regardless of what happens. As we work our way, well, I guess I didn't really talk about it too much, but we do have some sleet and freezing rain primarily happening, and we do expect major snowfall to occur primarily in the New England and the very far northeastern regions of the United States later on. So we'll talk about that during the model guidance. We have showery activity happening here across the southeast. As you can see, there's kind of a secondary low down here. And what's happening with this secondary low is primarily in ahead of this cold front here is where thunderstorm and tornadic apparently activity is happening. In here, we had a lot of tornadoes yesterday, unfortunately. And it looks like a couple more today have occurred as well in this warm sector here, out ahead of that cold front. And then we have mostly showers to the north of that warm front there, as you can see. Now what we're going to do is we're quickly going to move on, and we're going to talk about those major impacts, and I put an emphasis on that, major impacts in wintry weather on the way in just a few days. Now, as we're taking a look at the upcoming pattern, we will watch this all work its way through. Okay, we see the snowfall continuing up here for the north central United States by the time we're reaching later on this afternoon. And by the time we're reaching tomorrow morning, we will see a full-blown snowstorm here in the northeast with a 988 millibar low pressure center right offshore of the northeast there. Still some snow showers continuing here up in the north central United States, but not quite as major as it once was. And then we see that snowstorm slip offshore of the northeast. So I want to backtrack all the way to the beginning of it, and I want to zoom into that region because that's what we've been doing. This is a very populated area. The East is one of the more populated areas in the United States, and that's why I always kind of put an emphasis on it, and it's more localized for me, and I have access to my analytics that tells me that a majority of my viewers come from the East. So this is why we always zoom in to these areas. As you can see, we have snowfall switching over from that sleet and freezing rain by the time we're reaching just tonight. So about 9-10 p.m. we will have full-blown moderate to heavy snowfall happening in these pockets here for central Pennsylvania up through New York there. And as we continue on with this, we can see the heavier snowfall continuing on for a lot of these areas in the northeast. Valleys seeing more rainfall, more warmth heading up these valleys, as you can see. As I take that away, we could see the mixing happening in a lot of those areas. Things do cool down, however, as time moves on, and we see that eventually slip off the coast and come to an end. Total snowfall through that entire storm would look something like this. Obviously, a very major snowstorm, as at least a foot of snowfall is going to happen. Pretty widespread here throughout these northeast states, and then also up to 2 feet there in those higher elevation areas. Your grays will be dusting, if anything, blues 2 to 6 inches, purple 6 to 10, and then your pinks 10 to 20 there. So that's your 1 foot plus area. In the pinks, which we see is very widespread. And then your pastels that we see within there, those pastel blues, is going to be right around 20 to 35 inches of snowfall. So taking us just over 2 feet of snowfall in a lot of those pastel mountainous areas. Now, let's just go ahead and backtrack real quickly and just take a look at the entire upcoming pattern, because that is just one major snowstorm, and we have an even more major one on the way just after this. So this is the 19th, everything's said and done. Then right around your 21st time frame, what we see is this storm out here in the northwest starts to develop. And this is one of the two moving pieces that is going to create this monster eastern snowstorm. Potential for a blizzard. I don't want to throw that around too lightly, but there is great potential for a blizzard with this storm, as we expect it to potentially dip into the 970s or 960s as far as the pressure is concerned, which is extremely low. We have seen model guidance flirting with that as well. So we're going to see this slip down here into the east, and we're going to see a piece of this energy move up the coast as well, and it's all going to come together and create the perfect storm over the eastern United States, combined with historically cold temperatures as well. Just the setup is there for this monster storm. So I am going to zoom into the east here. Pretty understandably, because we see that the entire storm is in the east now. We do see plenty of snowfall happening for the upper Midwest in some of the Ohio Valley as well as the Great Lakes regions to begin things out. But we see that this storm is mostly in a moving phase, a very quickly moving phase, and this snowfall will not accumulate easily because it's going to be passing through very quickly. This is Thursday morning, December 22nd. Okay. And then we see, by time we're reaching later that afternoon, we see this creating snowfall still for a lot of these areas as far south as Mississippi and Alabama. And we see this nor'easter developing as well as a 979 or 997, better yet, pressure system here. Now, as we just move on one more hour, we see it dives to a 983 millibar low pressure center, bringing heavy snowfall already for these areas. We also see very heavy snowfall for a lot of these areas still. So I'm talking Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Illinois there on that western front. And what's happening here is we have this low with a cold front underneath. We could see that. And there's a bit of a warm front here, and this is why we get this little warm sector out ahead of this one. So there's a lot of dynamics happening here. And then we have this low pressure system here. And this is the one that's allowing for the cold air to kind of trickle in and bring some snowfall to the east here. So the kind of your freezing line is doing this, just like this. It's just creating, the warm front here is creating a little bit of a surge of warmth there. So I hope that makes sense. As we continue on, we see it start to come together as this one reaches a 971 millibar low pressure center. This one over here is a 989. So there is very broad, very, very low pressure, and also a 992 down here. So we have, and a 992 over here. So we have just tons of low pressure throughout all of these areas here. And that is creating this perfect storm of just extremely heavy snowfall. And I have not seen a storm like this pop up on model guidance as long as I've been tracking weather. And I have been tracking weather since, I think, 2012. It might be going on 10 years now. Since I was very young, I have been paying attention to the weather models, and I have not quite seen something like this pop up. Even in the long bullish range, I have not seen something pull up like this. Very high potential with this storm. It starts to kind of come more together as we get a 972 here, somewhere in the Chesapeake Bay. We see snowfall perhaps happening as far south as North Carolina. Most areas are receiving snowfall, and this is very close to being an even bigger system. If this low was to develop a little bit further east offshore, we would be having snowfall up and down the east coast here. What happens, though, is that this low is over the Chesapeake Bay, so we get mixing for a lot of those areas very close to that low here, as you can see. But everywhere else in the eastern United States seeing extreme snowfall at this point, extremely heavy snowfall. This low kind of moves up, and now it's located over southern Southern Pennsylvania, south central Pennsylvania is a 963 millibar low pressure center, but there's enough low pressure offshore. Again, there's very broad low pressure that most of your areas here are seeing snowfall. We do see a little bit of rainfall here mixing in for southern New England. So these coastal regions struggle a little bit, but we can see extremely heavy snowfall for most areas. And then it lifts off. We see a 995 millibar low pressure center here, 987, still mixing for the New England coast, kind of struggling there. Very heavy snowfall trending still. And this is on Christmas Eve. This is the 24th. And we see it still snowing by time we're reaching overnight Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. You might be wondering, what does this look like as far as total snowfall? And when we look at the total snowfall here through the next 10 days for all of these eastern regions here with this snowstorm, this is both snowstorms combined, but we kind of know at this point that all of that snowfall is going to be happening here. But that snowpack will still exist because it's only a few days from now. Obviously, gargantuan amounts of snowfall showing up here for some portions of the United States, and also more impactful amounts for our more southern areas here, especially as you dip into Tennessee and Kentucky, because these areas are less prepared for the snowfall. That multiple inches of snowfall during the Christmas travel is just going to be really awful here for Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, perhaps, northern Mississippi, northern Georgia, portions of North Carolina and Virginia as well. This is going to be a lot more impactful down there. And then we can see the 1 foot plus amounts widespread throughout the upper Midwest, Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, and the interior Northeast here. As of now, this model is really showing this more inland, multiple areas of low pressure solution. The thing that I've been mostly noting in our Facebook group, Weather Freaks, which you can join today, by the way, by clicking the link in the pinned comment and the description, what I've mostly been talking about in there is the fact that I am extremely confident that something very major is going to happen on December 23rd with the setup that we have. The problem is there's so many moving pieces is we don't know exactly what that is going to look like. And who sees snow and who doesn't. But I think there's going to be a lot of people that get a white Christmas, in a very white Christmas actually, with 1 foot plus snowfall with a very major snowstorm on the way. We're very far out. We are taking things with a grain of salt for the most part, but it is very interesting, and all signs are pointing towards something very major happening. And it's going to be the coldest Christmas in 40 years, probably, like I mentioned. And we'll take a look at that in a minute. Total precipitation through the next 10 days. As you can see, anywhere in the whites, we're expecting practically no precipitation. Your grays, 1/10 of an inch or less. Your greens, 1/10 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Your blues, 1/2 an inch to an inch. Your yellows, 1 inch to 2 inches. Reds, 2 to 5 inches. And then your browns, 5 inches plus. We can see a lot of this precipitation happening here in the Pacific Northwest. And then a lot of the eastern United States where we have these two major storms take place during the next 10 days. Total snowfall here, no surprise. Extreme amounts in the east. In the north central United States with that major snowstorm this model shows around the 23rd. Now, your grays are dusting, if anything. Blues, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purple, 6 to 10. Pinks, 10 to 20. Your pastel blues will be 20 to 35 inches of snowfall. And your pastel pinks, like we see here in the east, for a lot of these mountainous and inland regions, these areas here, your pastel pinks will be 35 to 48 inches plus. It is very rare that this is the area where you see the most snowfall in North America, but it does appear like they might have the Cascades and Rockies beat year over a 10-day period, which is, again, extremely rare to see. Now, the temperature pattern, because like I mentioned, Christmas will be historically cold. Let's just move on with this. We see our cold front start to move through by time we're reaching just into Saturday, just 2 days from now. We'll see this cold really entering into the east. Things will look even colder by the time we're reaching Monday the 19th as we get 10 to 15 degrees below normal temperatures there in the greens. Also extremely cold back out west as well. So cold from coast to coast. And then it's really as we reach the 21st, 22nd, 23rd here where things get really cold. This is going to be the 23rd into Christmas Eve. And those greens are 10 to 15 degrees below normal. Your blues in there are going to be 15 to 25 degrees below normal, and your magentas will be 25 to 35 degrees below normal. Certainly a far departure from what's typical. And here is Christmas Day on the ensemble model. Here we have extremely far below normal temperatures. It gets more averaged out as time goes on. We'll take a look at the actual temperatures in just a moment. But things stay cold here, as you can see. They start to get less and less and less cold. But that is typical with an ensemble model, and that doesn't mean it actually is going to be less cold. That just means that all of our ensemble members, which there's actually 50 of them, 50 different opinions coming up with this forecast right here. As time moves on, those start to roll into different directions, obviously, as they're all slightly different from each other. And that brings it a little bit more averaged out. But the fact that it's still showing some dark blues in there by the time we're reaching December 30th, 15 days from now, is extremely impressive. And that tells me that a majority of these members show deep cold in the east still by the time we're approaching the New Year's. Now, I want to show you guys real quickly as we roll into the European model again. I want to show you the actual temperatures. Because actually this won't get us to Christmas. So we'll take a look at the GFS model for this one. And in the eastern half of the nation, especially here, and we'll take a look at the central and west as well as a bonus here. But things start to get extremely cold here, especially as we reach Christmas Day. This would be the high temperatures on Christmas Day right here. So as you can see, this corridor here would be low 30s. For a lot of these areas, maybe some 40s down here for the deep, deep, deep south, which is very cold for them down there. And then your 20s are anywhere north of this line, basically, is going to be 20s as highs, by the way. High temperatures on Christmas Day. And then we get teens anywhere where you see the white numbers. So we're trying to track those here. It's anywhere north of this line, seeing teens, according to this GFS model. And then single digits up here for the upper Midwest as high temperatures. In case you're curious about the low temperatures, I won't kind of try to indicate every single temperature range, but this is the low temperatures as we're reaching Christmas Eve night into Christmas morning. This is how things could be looking. Now let's reach back towards the Christmas Day highs here. And let's look at the central United States real quickly, because we can see these single-digit temperatures up here in the upper Midwest. Very, very cold compared to normal. And really out west, it won't be quite as cold as the east, as you can see. As the high temperatures, we have maybe 30s out here, which is still really cold, but nothing compared to what the central or eastern United States is seeing. And of course, Southern California and Southern Arizona are looking beautiful on Christmas Day. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, there's a whole lot that we're going over in this video. Very extreme weather that we went over today. Probably the most action-packed video we've had of all time. As far as winter weather is concerned, certainly it was. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You can subscribe today. We do upload every single day, and we will be tracking all of these things daily. You can also hit that bell icon for daily notifications when we do upload. Like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below. And I will see you guys in the next video.